That glare. I don't know how I feel about that. We're just gonna have to deal with it. Okay, here we go. Hi, my name's Janie. I make videos when I'm bored, and today we're going over the 10 things I learned in therapy. What did I learn in therapy? This question has always been something that's hard for me to answer. My therapist would even ask me a couple of times throughout treatment, what have I learned? And I never really had an answer for her until our termination appointment, and I made a list of all the things that I learned. At first, I didn't think I learned much at all until I actually sat down and thought about it, and so I thought I would share some of that with you guys today. Maybe it will help you or someone you know with your, journey of self-discovery or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, here we go. Number 1, tell people when they've made me upset. I am pretty non-confrontational. When people make me upset, I usually don't tell them. And when you don't tell people when they've made you upset, that kind of leads to a lot of resentment, at least for me. And I kind of had to learn that the hard way in therapy. So it would have saved me a lot of time if I just said how I really felt. And so if someone makes you upset, you should probably tell them. And I know it's scary, but it leads to better communication, and that's always good. Number 2, keeping the peace creates a war inside you. This kind of relates to the first one. I did a lot of minimizing myself and my feelings in order to protect another person and to also just kind of more avoidance of confrontation, and that is not good. Keeping the peace really did create this fire inside me that was not good and led to a lot of anger and resentment with nowhere to go, and it is not a good mode of communication. So yeah, sometimes keeping the peace is not really worth it. Number 3, the hard conversations that you're avoiding and are the most difficult are the ones you should be having. This one cuts deep. There's lots of hard conversations that I avoided having in therapy or just with people in my life, and those are the ones you really should be having. Again, it could have prevented a lot of inner turmoil with myself if I had just spoken up about what made me upset. These first 3 basically just all relate to each other. So yeah, guys, just don't do what I did. And I know it's scary to have hard conversations with people, but I think at the end of the day, if that other person is willing to communicate with you the way that you want to communicate, you end up being a lot closer. Number 4, crying, having feelings, and asking for help is not weakness. This one is still a hard one for me to swallow. Crying is something that I still am pretty uncomfortable with doing in front of people. Even people that I'm close to, I don't like doing it. I usually like to cry alone in my room like a sad girl, and when you do that and when you kind of like hide your feelings from other people, you might think that like this is the strong thing to do because you're kind of isolating yourself, but it really isn't. I did that a lot and I still do that a lot. I'm trying to unlearn those things, but it's not weakness to cry in front of people that you know care about you. It's not weakness to have feelings, and especially asking for help. That was something that I really struggled with. I didn't start going to therapy until things got really dire for myself, because I fell into the whole stigma that you have to be a certain level of sick in order to start therapy, and the whole asking for help and being able to admit that things were not going well for me was hard. But I'm glad that I did it. And I know that a lot of us grow up, especially me. Let's talk about my experience. I grew up thinking that, crying and showing any type of emotion is weak. And it really just led to me in my adult life being really emotionally constipated. I held a lot of things in, and it was not healthy for me to do that. Even you can try to shove things down as much as possible, but they'll come out in some other way. And for me, it was pretty bad. So if there's any way you could prevent that, ask for help. Number 5, perfection doesn't exist. I am quite the perfectionist myself, or at least I was. I'm trying to unlearn a lot of the things with that. But yeah, in school, you gotta have A's, you gotta get good grades, you gotta do all this stuff so that your parents could be proud of you, or that they could go to parties and talk about you and say, hey, my daughter has this GPA, and over time that gets kind of tied to your self-worth. And one of the things I learned in therapy is that nobody is perfect. We are all flawed individuals, and there's just no way that you can attain perfection. Try your damnest all you want, but it's not really a goal I think anyone should have. Especially here with YouTube and editing and watching myself back and cutting it up and all that stuff. I know that this video will never be perfect for what it is. Or when I would draw pictures in my sketchbook for therapy, I would sketch them out with pencil first and draw them with Sharpie afterwards because I wanted it to be perfect and all that. And it was like, why? What does that do? Is it going to make my therapist think that I'm better because I can draw a straight line? Like, a lot of the things that I tried to attain by being perfect were things that were never really worth it in the first place. Number 6, review what does and doesn't serve you. This kind of comes from the Marie Kondo show on Netflix. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but in there, she goes to people's houses and she helps them organize, let's say, their closet. And in order for them to throw away their clothes or donate their clothes, she has them make 2 piles. One of them is the clothes that bring them joy, and the other pile is clothes that do not bring them joy. And I think that in a lot of ways, therapy has helped me realize what does and doesn't bring me joy. What am I doing that actually makes me suffer more versus what could I do that actually makes me feel better? I tend to ruminate a lot, especially about things that have made me upset or made me angry, or times that I've felt wronged by other people. And it could be moments that happened years ago, and I still feel them as if they happened to me recently. And what will I gain from that? Nothing. And so that's one of the things that I learned to kind of be like, hey, you know what? This doesn't serve me anymore. I should probably stop doing that, or try to stop doing that. And it doesn't work all the time, but sometimes being aware of it is enough. Number 7, we are all wounded individuals. I touched on this earlier, but it really is true. I kind of see this as a way of when you're talking to other people and they behave in a certain way that probably doesn't rub you the right way, or I don't really know how to explain that, but when someone acts in a way that you're kind of like, what are you doing? Sometimes it's really not about you, People come from their own backgrounds, have their own history, and unfortunately that manifests into a lot of the ways that people act in their adult life. And, to know that we are all wounded and hurt in some way kind of helps to, I guess, understand where people are coming from and where their behaviors come from, and that you can't change them either. In order for someone to change, they would have to see a problem within themselves, and some people do, some people don't, and we have to kind of learn to be okay with that. And I know it sucks, but yeah, at the end of the day, we are all wounded. Number 8, anger is a secondary emotion. This one I think I learned off of Instagram, but also I learned in therapy as well. If you've ever seen a feelings wheel, I'll probably put one up right now. Anger is opposite to powerful most of the time, depending on the format you're looking at. And so you can say, when you feel angry, you really felt powerless. Sometimes anger can even mask being sad or feeling grief, as it was for me when I was in therapy. I spent a lot of time being angry at my therapist for a plethora of things, but it was really just grief. And anger can, I guess, be a shield or armor in a lot of ways. It can make you feel strong and tough when in reality you just feel sad. I don't want to say weak, but it's a defense mechanism. It's a way to protect yourself. And I know that sometimes, at least for me, I use the anger so that I can kind of toughen up and try to get people away from me and to push them away. But the secondary emotion that anger is just to hide how you're really feeling. And for me, a lot of the time, the way I was really feeling was just sad. But yeah, that's kind of been something that's hard for me to grapple with most of the time, but it usually is not really what you think it is. Number 9, Forgiving is not forgetting, nor is it weak to let someone who hurt you back in. Some people deserve a second chance. You also don't have to forgive someone who hurt you either. This is a big one for me. I don't think in my life I have forgiven a single person. I'm pretty resentful when it really gets down to it. Because of the whole hiding my feelings and not speaking up for how I'm really feeling and all that, I never really learned to forgive because I never learned to tell people when they've made me upset. And this forgiveness lesson that I learned in therapy was probably the biggest one for me. I had some pretty bad experiences in therapy before I got to my previous therapist. And I was really angry and mad the whole time. And I would use my current therapist as a way to get back at what happened to me before. Because I just couldn't forgive what happened before, even though it had nothing to do with her. And there was a time where my therapist did really piss me off and I wanted to fire her and leave. But it really would have done nothing. It would have sent me down this path of doing the same thing that I do every single time. And forgiving is something that's really hard for me. And I think I owe a lot of learning to forgive from the experience that I had in therapy, but also meditation. I started doing loving kindness meditation, which helps with like self-compassion and your ability to forgive other people. And that actually helped me a lot to kind of see her, my therapist, and, you know, other therapists as people. I know that sounds really weird, but I was so angry for a long time. And sometimes you can let people back in who have hurt you. Some people genuinely, they mean well, but they just maybe suck sometimes, you know? But you also don't have to forgive people who have hurt you either. I know there's this saying like forgive and forget, but I think that invalidates what happened to you. Some people are really crappy and you don't have to forgive them. Number 10 is remain curious. So what I mean about remain curious is, let's say you're upset about something or whatever it is. Look underneath. Whatever you're feeling, there's usually something else underneath that. And to remain curious about that is where I think the self-discovery really comes from. It's just something to kind of keep digging into why it is that you act a certain way, or why is it that your initial thought process is always a certain way too, or just, I don't know, take a look at your behaviors and ask why. If you're feeling something, why? You know, it's really just trying to get to the bottom of where things come from. Remaining curious is also about kind of, I guess, looking underneath and seeing what's really going on right now, and it's usually not what you think it is. Alright, so that's all the things I learned in therapy. I have my sad face mug here to accompany me for this outro. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe. If you've learned some things in therapy, leave them in the comments below. If you learned anything from this video, that's also cool too. I'll see you guys in the next video.